That way I don't forget. All right, so we're in week 8, and we're getting down close to the wire here, right? We got just 2 more weeks, really, just barely to go. So it's a fast summer. I know that. It's especially in this class. So I applaud you for uh, keeping up because this class moves very fast in the summer class. Uh, so in week 8 we have just chapters 10 and 11, and we have the packet tracer assignment. The IP subnetting lab is due. But also you should be looking at and working on the final lab if you haven't. But the subnetting lab, right? So that's due this Sunday. It's pretty lengthy, so hopefully you've gotten that pretty close or are near done with that one. Um, and then we have the final lab. Um, whoops, where? I'm sorry, week 10. Um, the final exam lab, it follows the book, several capstone projects, but you should be working on that um, as well. So make sure you take a look at that and start working on that. I mean, it's not this one's not so bad because it's pretty much following it step by step in the book. The book gives you everything to do, but there is, it does cover 4 capstone projects, so it is a large assignment. We'll go with that. Um, and but it does walk you through step by step and doing it, so it's not too bad. Not like the subnetting project, which uh, is just in packet tracer, and so but it's learning how to subnet. Uh, any questions on either of those labs? That terrifies me. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, but you've done subnetting before, so I mean that's really the big heart of it. It's just you're just doing. Think of it as each system on there is basically a subnetting problem. So it's uh, not shouldn't be too overwhelming. Uh, yeah, it's very yeah. You're yeah. Uh, I get that. It is a very large assignment and it is a lot of subnets. But please, reach out to me, ask any questions you want. We can go through it on Google Hangouts together on some of them. If you get stuck on anything, so don't feel like you're alone. My my goal is that you're able to get through them and see it and experience it, but you're not by yourself. So please reach out to me. It's not a bad thing if you have to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to work with you on any of the subnetting problems in that lab. So don't feel overwhelmed. That's what I'm here for. My goal is that you just get experience doing it, right? So, um, any of them? Yeah. Okay, that's good. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely reach out to me. I have um, a lot of free time here, so now I've got my certification done. So yeah, please do, Valerie. Yeah. Um, please reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Because yeah, I know that subname project is pretty big, but it's like I say, it's really each one is just more a one problem at a time, right? And if you went through the IP packet a little bit, it should help you figure out because once you know how to subnet, it's this project or lab should be very, very simple. But I can understand on some of the problems are a little hard. I did put some that were challenging. So I'm more than happy to work with you on any of them anyway. But so please reach out. Um, let's see here. And then, like I said, make sure though that you probably start looking at the final lab. The final lab is 4 capstone projects. And let me pull that up because I think we covered the subnetting one before, but um, the final lab, right? So you're going to follow these 4 capstone projects in the book, and they're capstone projects. So not the hands-on projects, but the capstone projects at the back of each chapter. And it's chapter 7. So capstone project 7-2, chapter 8, capstone projects 8-1, 8-2, and 8-3. All right. So those 4 is what you need to do. You can ignore because in 7-2 it talks about you having completed project 6-1. Basically, when you did the packet tracer assignment, that's basically project 6-1 is getting downloading and installing packet tracer and getting familiar with packet tracer. So you just ignore that. Don't worry about it. You should just be able to start from 7-2. And then I've given some hints on some of the steps that aren't maybe as clear in the book. And then let's see here. So let me go open the book here. All right, so we'll go to chapter 7, go towards the review questions, and then I believe so. Right, so right at first is these hands-on projects. That's not what we're doing. We're doing capstone projects. Let me see if we can get to. Okay, so here's the first capstone project, 7-1, but we're not doing that one. We're going to do 7-2, which is the first one. So here it is, right? So this is the first one you would start with is the capstone project. So make sure you're doing the capstone projects and not the hands-on projects, and then make sure that you're dealing with the ones, doing 7-2 and not 7-1. And you can ignore this, right? So you install packet tracer because you've already installed packet tracer, but you didn't do capstone project 6-1, but we took care of installing packet tracer earlier. And so it's going to start you off with just a very simple network, and you're going to do things with that, adding the 2 switches, 2 workstations, and a router. And you're configuring it. Then you'll go to chapter 8, go to the review questions, and then let me see here. Oh, wait, we might actually be in this. Let me see. Yeah, well, this looks like a part of the. Okay, here we go. Capstone projects. Right, so 8-1, we're going to add 3 new routers, 4 new switches, and 4 new workstations. Right, so you're going to have this right here when you start doing 8-1. And then you're going to cable it up, and then you're going to add some cards into the router 3, which, right, so this is going to be your router 3 up here. It's going to be your main central router, and you're going to add in the card so that you can connect up all the routers. You're going to do some subnetting, right, to get all this working. And they give you some easy charts to go through it. Then there's A2. We're going to just configure some more cabling and the PCs. And you're going to add some VLANs onto the switches. And it goes through, like I said, this one at least walks you through creating the VLANs and all that. And then some of the commands that you need to do for the sub interfaces. And then 8-3, I think we're going to add some DHCP and things like that in there, some other VLANs, yeah, DHCP services, right? And then they walk you through some of the commands on the switches, right? Creating the switch port access trunk ports, DHCP on the router, because you're going to have some workstations that get their IP address from DHCP and some of them that are going to be static. And then you get down here, you save it as a packet tracer file, and then submit it. So it's fairly straightforward, but there is a lot, as you can see, to the lab. All right. And once again, if you run into anything, you have any questions, I'm more than willing to help you with that. Although this one, most everything is in the book pretty much step by step, even the commands that you should be running. It's just getting it, creating that whole network. But shouldn't be too bad, but I wouldn't wait too long either, right? Because we're almost there to week 10, right? We're in week 8. That's due in week 10. So don't delay too long on it. The ACLs and Switchport Lab. Okay, sure. Let's go ahead and see here. Week 7. No. All right, which week is that? Is that in week 9? Switchport is, yes, okay. All right, okay, so which one do you have questions on first? Switchport, okay. Switchport, let's grab that lab. And grab the document. All right, so I'm going to minimize that. All right. All right, so All right, so this is from the book, page 609, right? So we have two PCs. Let's just do this. Two PCs, the switch, and pretty much give the configuration on the switch, um, pinging the PCs, and then we're going to add a laptop if I'm right, or no, this one. Yeah, add a laptop. Okay, what's your question? Yeah, okay, sure. Swapping the ports port. Okay, okay. So down here at the end, right? So you uh, add a laptop. It's up before that, right there. Okay. Um, below, swap the switch ports for PC0 and PC1. Okay. 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 Right. So you've got PC0 plugged into fast Ethernet 0/1, and then PC1 connected into fast Ethernet 0/2, right? Yeah. Okay. And so you create this, you set up the switch, and so that they get MAC address sticky, you do the ping PC1 to PC0, so then that makes the port sticky, right? Um, and yeah, those work, right? Exactly. Then you swap the PCs, and then you try to ping, and then it should not work, right? Is that what you're getting, right? Do we do it on the interface? Oh, how do you switch them? So, yeah, no, right. So I got you. So you got your switch out here, and you got your two PCs, and you got your cables. So this is going to 1, and this is going to 2. And so what we're saying is you're just gonna, what you're gonna have to do is take the cable and temporarily like put it on port 4, and then take this cable and put it on port 1, and then come back to here and then put this on port 2. So that's what it means by switching. Right. Yeah, it's just, yeah, but you have to, or you can delete the cables and recreate them, however you want to do, as long as they're plugged into ports 1 and port 2 and reverse it. Right. Shows complete, but I didn't do this step. Right. It will. Right. Yeah. Because the packet tracer, it's not that smart. Um, for the completion part, it's just going to see, do you have the switch configured correctly, and maybe it might check uh, which port they're plugged into, but it depends on how I wrote it. But it's not really that smart to know that. It's more for your benefit to go through and see how it works. Um, yeah, I wish I could grade that the whole steps, but yeah, packet tracer is not that smart. Yeah. All right, but good question. Anything else on this lab? ACL Roam Gateway. So, the ACL lab. No, just yes. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. So let me get to the ACL lab here. All right. default gateway PC3 is wrong. Okay. All right, so we've got 4 PCs, 2 switches, 1 router. Router 0 has 2 IPs, 2.1, 4.1, should be 4.1. Okay, so PC 3 default gateways 4. All right, so okay. All right, and so if you put that there, it's saying it's wrong. The one you've printed gives you the wrong one. One you have is correct. Oh, okay. So you have your lab. It doesn't say, it says 2 or yes. Okay, interesting.
That's how mine was too. It had 2 of them that said 2 and one that said 4.
Huh. I don't know how that happened. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Because yeah, I mean, it should be that way. I mean, I don't think I've updated this recently. Is it saying it's wrong though if you put it in as 4? Yes. Huh. Interesting. Oh, no. If you put in 2, it's wrong, but it's okay. So it says 2 to put in 2, but then it grades it wrong because it should be 4. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Huh. I don't know how you got a version that version. I do apologize, but at least the current version out there is correct. Uh, I'm not sure what happened there. Because like I said, I don't think I've updated this one that recently. Weird. All right. Well, I apologize. I'm not sure how that happened because it shouldn't change it. It just should be the way it is. Um, uh, any other questions on this lab? Also, if you edit access list 1. Oh, wrong machine. All right. You create the access list. You don't take deny host out and permit it, or just let it. Let's see here. All right, so we create the list with deny host, switch to config, add the group 1 inbound, keep deny PC0 and permit 1. Access, list, permit host. Right, keep deny PC, right, and permit 1, right, yeah, right, you should have an access list that will have it denying 1 PC, right, PC0, and then permitting PC1, right, you keep both. So, right, right, because you're editing the access list, right, because it was created when you denied first, the first time you created it, but now you have to edit the list because you're adding to it. You're not taking away, right? So you should end up with denying PC0 and allowing PC1. Yeah, right, right. So PC2 and 3 should only be able to get to PC1. They should not be able to get to PC0. Right. There you go. Good questions. Good questions. I appreciate that. Uh, anything else on this lab? All right. You're good. Okay. Good. All right. Any questions on any other lab or assignment? Answer to the question at the end of the switchboard lab. It's in the book. Oh, the book. All right, let's look. And that was 10-1, right? There are 4 questions. Okay. Let me see here. No, that's fine. Um, configure radius. Oh, maybe that's not it. Oh, um, what was that? No, that's definitely not what I want. All right. Let's do. Send the switch port lab. All right. Okay, so it is. Okay, it's a capstone project. Okay, capstone project. All right, so got the lab. Okay, these questions here. Okay. All right. What are the 3 configuration options for the switch port security command? Okay. You got you got the answer for that one? Or you want just it's just that we oh, do you have to include them in the lab? No, no. Um, no, you don't have to answer those. Yeah, there's no way you can answer them in the lab, right? Yeah, there's no way. I mean, I guess you could attach a file, but no, just do the lab. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, all right. Um, all right, right. So yeah, because right, you can just show the options, right? So I mean, you could answer them, but right, you don't have to do it. Uh, but if anybody's wondering, right? So here's how you would find the options for the port security. Um, you just use the question mark after it. Um, so while that's going, I wonder if I can copy this and save me some typing. if you do the switch ports command with the question mark, you've got these 4 aging, MAC address, maximum violations. So you can answer that question, but you don't have to include it. Anyway, anything else? Super late, but I still have the project VLANs to work on, and I'm stuck at a point where we worked on the router. Okay. All right, let's see here. VLANs. Should be this one. Okay. All right, so it's this lab right here. Yeah, okay. All right, and so then you've got the router, and so let's see here. So we've got VLAN 11, VLAN 12, right? So we're doing VLAN 11 over here on switch 0 and VLAN 12 on switch 1. And so then you've got a trunk port. You create a trunk port on each switch, right? On the gigabit ports, and connect it to the router, right? Um, so the router should be plugged in gigabit 0 here to gigabit 1 and gigabit 1 to gigabit 1. So in those ports, you should create trunk ports on the switches. Have you done that? Don't think so. Okay. Well, that's the first part you want to make sure you do, because that allows the router to see all the VLANs on that switch, right? That's the first step, is creating a trunk port on the switches, and then once you have the trunk port, then you would go into the router. Go into enable mode, config T mode, um, and then so we're going to go to interface gigabit Ethernet 0-0, right? Yeah. So because we're going to be dealing with trunk ports and VLANs, right? We're going to have sub interfaces. But first thing we need to do is we need to turn the interface on. So now port 0, you see that it's coming up. So you need to turn it on so you know shut down. And then we'll exit that. And then we'll go to interface 1 and turn that on. All right. So now we've got both ports on, but we need to create ports that access the VLANs. So because you have a trunk line, so we got on each port, on each switch, we have 2 VLANs, VLAN 1 and then either VLAN 11 or VLAN 12, right? So we have 2 VLANs on these switches. The router is seeing both VLANs from both switches, and so we need to create subports, basically virtual ports, but they're called sub interfaces, one for each VLAN. And technically, since this is only focusing on VLAN 11 and 12, you only need to do one, but you in reality, you would create however many there were VLANs. And so you'd want to do, so 0. I usually do the, and I think the grading is based on if you do the sub interface the same as the VLAN that you're going to connect it to. So on port 0, this side of the router is going to switch 0 and it connects to gigabit Ethernet 0. I'm creating a sub interface on here of 0.11, right? So I'll create a sub interface just by going to the interface. And so you can see, right, change state to up, and I'm now on interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0.11. Now I have technically two interfaces here, 0/0 and then 0/0.11. I'm configuring 0.11. The way I get the VLAN traffic is through encapsulation. We need to know how the packets are tagged from VLANs. This is a 2960 switch, so it uses the .1Q. But so you have the .1Q or the IEEE or the 802.1Q, or I guess you guys got the .1Q. I'm sorry, never mind. I thought there was more than one, but so we got a .1Q encapsulation, and we're looking for VLAN 11. So what we're telling it is look in the packets that are coming onto this port, because we've got multiple VLANs coming, and so we're looking for the ones that are tagged with with VLAN 11. And then once we do that, now it'll accept traffic from VLAN 11. And so the only other thing is now we would have to do the IP address, whatever the IP address 192.168.11.254, I think, whatever the it tells you is the IP address for the router, right? So you want it on the sub interface, not on 0/0, but 0/0.11. And then the router is able to access the VLAN 11. And then you do the same thing for 12. And so this is 0/0.1, because now we're on the other side, right? So now we're on sub interface 1.12, which is on this side because we wanted to get VLAN 12, right? And so then you do the encapsulation .1Q and 12, right? And then you do its IP address 192.168.12.254. Just make sure you use the right IP address. And then so now the router ports are up. It's got an IP address on the sub interfaces, and each sub interface is looking for the VLAN traffic. And so then all you have to do is make sure that this switch, the gigabit port that the router is plugged into, is a trunk port, so that all the VLAN traffic is going there. And the same on this switch, make sure that the router port that's plugged in is a trunk port, and then everything should work fine. How do you make sure it's a trunk port? Well, so we go on to the switch, right? You go into config T mode, right? Go to the interface, gigabit 0/1, I believe, right? And then switch port, right? Mode. And then you can make it. So switch port mode, you can make it an access, a dynamic, or trunk. So we want trunk, so we just do trunk. And so now the it's a trunk port. It's pretty simple. And so then, yeah, right. So, but then of course on the other ones, you make them access ports for the VLANs. Uh, but yeah, and then, but yeah, once you get that set up, then it's pretty much the same. Because that's the big one is the trunk port and the sub interfaces on the router. All right. All right. I think that's about it on that one. Okay. All right. Any other labs or assignments or questions? You know, if I have any other questions later, that's okay. All right. All right. I'm hearing none, so let's go over chapter 10 and 11, I believe, right? All right, so yeah, 10 and 11. All right, so let's go ahead and do our quiz. Um, all right. Oh, you're stuck in the lab radius. Okay, sure. All right, we can do that. Just the wireless radius lab. Wireless card on the laptop. Okay, sure. Okay, so wireless lab on the laptop. So we've got the laptop here. Um, so you go in here and you look at its view, right? So here's the network card on that, right? You power the button off here, so you power the laptop off. Then you can drag the wireless or the physical card out, and then you can add the wireless card in and then turn it back on. And so then once it's in there, then you can go to config, and then you got the wireless settings that you can configure. You know, so you want WPA2, right? So it's user one, I believe, Cengage, I think, right? And let's see here. I think that's everything. Um, is that answer your question? Did I answer it with any of that, or do you have anything else specific? I got where I did the last. Did take the install card out. You got it. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah. 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 It's not very intuitive, right? Right. Yeah, you have to replace the existing card and put the wireless card in, and then you get the wireless options. Yeah. Any other questions on that lab or? VLAN with trunk line. Oh, the VLAN trunk line lab that we were just in. What's your question on that? Did you have a question on the VLAN trunk line? Let me do it again today and see where it gets stuck. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we'll get back to the quiz then. Let's see. All right. Also, I'm sorry for late submission. Oh, don't worry about it. This class, I'm pretty much allowing late assignments, so being the summer class and everything's just really fast. So I mean, it's a lot. So yeah, don't worry about it. Just make sure everything gets turned in before the end of the semester. All right. Uh, Question one. What statement correctly describes a stateless firewall? A or D? All right. So, okay. No. Let's see. Stateless blocks, design, traffic on application data. No. It's actually B. Right? A stateless firewall manages each incoming packet as a standalone entity, and it's without regard to currently active connections. So a stateful firewall will check it based on any active connections, right? So do I have an active connection? A stateless doesn't keep state, right? So think of when you're programming, you're keeping the state of something, right? So you remember it. So a stateless doesn't remember it. It's not looking to see if there's other connections that are related to it. It's on its own. The packet comes in, it judges it based on that packet. Whereas a stateful firewall will look and see, is this part of an ongoing communication that I've already approved, right? So that's a stateful. It's aware of the state. Stateless has no idea. It's a standalone entity, and it checks it um, uh, based on the packet only. So that's the difference between stateless and stateful. All right. Which adaptation of EAP utilizes EAP MS CHAP version 2 inside of an encrypted TLS tunnel? B, yeah, exactly. It's a protected EAP, right? Because it's encrypted in a TLS tunnel. It's encapsulated or it's protected. So that's a yeah. So that is the correct answer. Um, User access to network resource falls into one of these two categories. Category one, the privilege or right to execute, install, and uninstall software. And category two, permissions to read, modify, create, or delete data files and folders. It is true. It is true according to the book, but I just never heard of it categorized that way for anything. But according to the book, that it is two categories. Which of the following is an example of proxy server software? C, Squid is a proxy server software. Yes, that is correct. The supplicant is an EAP entity responsible for requesting authentication, such as a smartphone or laptop. It is true. It is true. Yes. The wired equivalent privacy standard had what significant disadvantage? So WEP, why don't we use WEP anymore? A, yes, it used a shared encryption key for all clients, and that key may never change. Yeah, that is true. That is why WEP is insecure. One of the reasons. Um, Proxy servers and ACLs on network devices are examples of non-security devices with security features, while firewalls and IDS, IPS systems are the network specialized security devices. So it's intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems. It is true, although I'm loosely given with the proxy servers. The ACLs are definitely proxy servers is yeah, I mean, I guess it is because you're redirecting it to a controlled source. So I can see it. I just it's kind of on the fence on me for that one, but it is true. The storm control command is a type of flood guard that is available on most major network switch vendor platforms. It is true, right? Yeah. So, right, they talk about broadcast storms and floods of traffic. So, storm control is the kind that they use on major network switches to help uh, uh, prevent floods, broadcast storms, and things like that, right? So they help protect our switches. Um, Enforcing a virtual security perimeter using a client's geographic location is known by what term? So we're protecting the client based on their geographic location. So, yep, C, geofencing, right? A fence protects things, right? So, yeah, geofencing. When using a host-based intrusion detection system, what additional feature might be available to alert the system of any change made to files that shouldn't change? C, yes, file integrity, right? Because we got availability, uh, integrity, and confidentiality, right? So integrity, that yeah, is the ability to make sure something hasn't changed. Uh, the group policy utility can be opened by typing what name into a run box? Can't remember that one. Yeah, it's C. It's the group policy editor, GP edit. All right. Which legacy authentication protocol requires mutual authentication? All right, so Microsoft Challenge Handshake Authentical Protocol version 2. Yes, version 2 required mutual authentication. In ACLs or ACL statements, using the any keyword is equivalent to using a wildcard mask of what value? B. Yeah. B. Yeah. Yeah. 255, 255, 255, 255. Yeah, I would think it's A as well. So how do you? Because when we do a lot of things on switches and routers and for routing, we use the zeros. But yeah, the in this case with the ACL statements, it's 255. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I could see with the zeros because that's the wild card for routing. So I hate that they had that as an answer because yeah, because it is that way in routing. It's the wild card is zeros. What aspect of AAA is responsible for determining what a user can and cannot do with network resources? Authorization, right? That's what gives you the ability. Are you authorized? Can you do it or can you not? Right? Authorization. When utilizing Kerberos, an access granting ticket is the same as a key. That is false. That is false. You have been tasked with the configuration of a Juniper switch and have been told to restrict the number of MAC addresses allowed in the MAC address table. What command should you use? And yes, it is MAC-limit. MAC-limit. Good job. Which encryption standard was originally utilized with WPA's TKIP? That's a good guess, right? It's RC4. RC4. Yeah. Which of the following term is used to describe the configuration of a port to copy all traffic passing through the switch to the device at the end of the port? Right. It's port mirroring, right? Port mirroring. In order to prevent ports that are serving network hosts from being considered as best paths, what should be enabled to block BPDUs? And the BPDU guard, or A. That is correct. A stateless firewall inspects each incoming packet to determine whether it belongs to a current active connection. That's actually false because this is stateless, right? If it's stateful, that would be true, but stateless, it does not care, right, about the active connection. So let's go ahead and submit. And we got them all. So which statement correctly describes a stateless firewall, right? Once again, it's a stateless firewall manages each incoming packet as a standalone entity without regard to the currently active connections. Which adaptation of EAP utilizes EAP MS chat version 2 inside of an encrypted TLS tunnel, and that is the protected EAP. And then users' access to network resources falls into one of two categories, and that is true. Which of the following is an example of a proxy server software? That is Squid. The supplicant is an EAP entity responsible for requesting authentication, such as smartphone or laptop, and that is true. The wired equivalency privacy standard had what significant disadvantage? And it used a shared encryption key for all clients, and the key might never change. Proxy servers and ACLs on a network device are examples of non-security devices with security features, and while firewalls and IPS systems are the network specialized security devices, that is true. The Storm Control Command is a type of flood guard that is available on most major network switch vendor platforms, that is true. Geofencing is enforcing a virtual security perimeter using a client's geographic location. When using a host-based intrusion detection system, what additional feature might be available to alert the system of any changes made to files that shouldn't change? And that's file integrity monitoring. The group policy utility can be opened by typing gpedit into the run box. The legacy authentication protocol requires mutual authentications as MS-CHAP version 2. And then 255, 255, 255, 255 is the ACL statement using the any keyword, right? That's the equivalent is the 255, 255, 255, 255. What aspect of AAA is responsible for determining what a user can and cannot do with network resources? That's authorization. And then it is not true that when utilizing Kerberos, an access granting ticket is the same as the key. It is not. It's false. You have been tasked with configuring a Juniper switch and have been told to restrict the number of MAC addresses allowed in the MAC address table. What command should you use? It's the MAC-limit. The encryption standard was originally utilized with WPA's TKIP, and that's the RC4, in which the following terms is used to describe the configuration of a port to copy all traffic passing through the switch to the device at the other end of the port. And that's port mirroring. And in order to prevent ports that are serving networks hosts from being considered as best paths, what should be enabled to block the BPDUs? And that's the BPDU guard. And finally, a stateless firewall does not inspect incoming packets to determine where it belongs to in a current active connection. It does not. It is not aware of connections. It treats it as a standalone entity. All right. Let's go with chapter 11. A differential backup covers what data on a system? B, right? So it includes data that has changed since the last full backup. Yeah, so it's the last full backup. So you can do with differential, you always have to have the last full backup and then the last differential tape, right? So so you only need two tapes or discs or backups to restore from with differential. Incremental is since the last backup, right? So say you have a full backup on Sunday, and then you do an incremental on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Each backup will have just the changes that happen on that day, but then you need all those tapes to restore or backups. And I'm dating myself. We very rarely use tapes anymore, but you need those backups. For an incremental, you would need all the incrementals plus the full. Whereas with differential, you just need the last differential and the last full, because the differential copy saves everything that's changed since the last full backup. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. The link aggregation control protocol was initially defined by the what IEEE standard? Uh, B. Very good. Yes, that is good. It is B. It's 802.3 AD. Uh, this is one I honestly didn't know this until I was studying prepping for this. Um, but here's a little trick that I do. I still got it right, even though not knowing which one it was, um, because I look at it and it's like, okay, 802.3 is here multiple times. A lot of times on technology tests, they'll do this. So I'm like, okay, so 802.3 is most likely the answer. It's one of those. And then I see that there's two A's and three D's. Um, so I went with AD just on that assumption, because uh, there's multiples that had that. So I mean, and usually it is amazing if you don't know how many times you'll get it right that they do this uh, unknowingly. So I came up with that just because of the amount of times they use certain letters when we're dealing with all this. Yeah, it's a great tip. It helps. I mean, if you have no idea, right, you just kind of look at it and see, because they try to trip you up by giving you stuff that's close to it, right? And so I thought I'd give you that tip. I mean, it's a lot of times, and it'll work not on just this, but anything. There's a lot of times where it's very close, right? Or they use the same words a lot. So usually, I'm not, and like I said, when you have to guess and you have no idea, try to look at what's used a lot in an answer in between the different answers, and usually that'll narrow it down between two instead of 1 in 4 chance of guessing, you got a 1 in 2 maybe, right? It happens a lot. So, um, all right. So most Unix and Linux desktop operating systems provide a GUI application for easy viewing and filtering the information in system logs. True, they do. Uh, uh, most no one uses them, but but yes, they do have them. Class of services utilizes 8 levels of priority and modifies the PCP field in an 802.1q tag. So the class of service utilizes 8 levels of priorities and modifies the PCP field in our 802.1q tag. Yeah, it is true. It is true. Yeah. The class of service, it modifies the PCP field, right? How does a line condition UPS protect network equipment? B, yeah, it filters the line noise from incoming power. Packets that are smaller than the medium's minimum packet size are known by what term below? Yeah, C, runts. Yeah, that just goes in lines, right, where IT exams and questions are usually not, with our terminology, we're not very creative. Words mean what they mean. So the runt of the litter, it's the small packet. So uh, which of the following statements describe a RAID 0 configuration? And no, it is not. It's not mirrored. It's actually a stripe set, right? So it's striped across this to improve performance. Mirroring is RAID 1, right? So RAID 1 is mirroring. RAID 0 is striped. And then I always just remember it as, 0, gives you 0 protection, right? But all the performance, and one gives us protection because it's mirrored, right? So that's how I remembered it for myself. But um, SNMP version 3 protocol introduced authentication, validation, encryption for messages exchanged between devices and the network management console. That is true. Yes. Yeah. It was very insecure just using like a community password before, but version 3 allows for true authentication and validation and encryption. So yeah, it's very powerful. SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, is very powerful, and so it was good that they locked it down. What happens when an NMS uses the SNMP walk command? It is A, yes. NMS uses GET requests to move through the sequential rows in the MIB library or database. Right, so it basically walks through and checks all the potential options that are available. And what makes up the first 6 bits of the 8-bit diff/serv field? B, yeah, right. So if you had no idea, but you got the diff/serv, right, and differential service, right. So um, the, but that is correct. It's B, but that would be the way I would have guessed. Yeah, that's exactly why you went by it. That's good. Exactly, right. Um, that's a good way to rule it out. Um, it doesn't work all the time, but if you're trying to guess, right? uh, Hopefully you know, but if you're guessing, right, you use what you have. Uh, if you wish to maintain a 4 nines availability, what is the maximum amount of downtime you can have per day? So this is 99.99% uptime. D, 8 seconds. Yeah, you can have 8 seconds of downtime a day for 4 nines. At what point is a packet considered to be a giant? So we had runts before, they were the minimum, right? So this is the giants, right? So it's B, right? It becomes a giant when it exceeds the medium's maximum packet size, right? Like I said, we're not very creative with our naming and stuff, which is good. It makes it a little easier. What does the Common Address Redundancy Protocol do? It is A. It is A, right? It allows a pool of computers or interfaces to share the same address, IP address, right? And once again, you had that redundant address, right? And so it should have been one of these two. But MAC addresses, we know from what you don't want duplicate MAC addresses or machines having the same MAC address causes major issues. But having machines hide and natted behind IP addresses and things like that is easy to do, and we do that a lot where we have multiple machines sharing an IP address. So A is the answer, right? Each managed object on a managed device using SNMP is assigned which of the following? It's B, right? The object identifier, right? Because they were talking about objects, right? Um, so they have an ID, an object identifier on SNMP. So that's good. Which term is used to describe the average amount of time that will pass for a device before a failure is expected to occur? D, mean time between failures. Yes, yes. That is the mean time between failures. right? You see that the failure was used twice in there, right? So you could at least eliminate it between the twos, uh, but it is the mean time. Uh, a hot site consists of computers, devices, and connectivity necessary to rebuild a network. Never exists, but without appropriate configuration. Um, a a hot site, excuse me, a hot site consists of computers, devices, connectivity necessary to rebuild a network exists, but without appropriate configurations. Yeah, that is false, right? A hot site it's ready, right? It's got all the configurations, but yeah, wow, that was poorly worded question. Yeah. Yeah, so hot site, it's ready to go. You can flip the switch. It's even got data, right? Or it should have data. It should take almost no time to become active. Once a device has failed, what metric measures the average amount of time to repair? B, right? The only answer with the word repair in it, the mean time to repair. Yeah. Uh, You can find out where various logs are kept on some Unix and Linux systems by viewing the etc syslog or the rsyslog config files, and that is true. The grouping of multiple servers so they appear as a single device to the rest of the network is known as which term? C, clustering. Yes, yes, clustering is correct. And Wireshark or any other monitoring software running on a single computer connected to a switch doesn't see all the traffic on the network, but only the traffic the switch sends to it, which includes broadcast traffic and traffic specifically assigned to the computer. That is true. That is true. Unless, of course, you're plugged into a port mirrored port, right? That's why we have port mirroring, is if you want to see everything, right? Um, but yeah, so that is true. Still see a lot. Um, all right, so we got them all. So a differential backup covers what data on a system and includes the data that has changed since the last full backup. Our 802.3AD is the link aggregation and control protocol. Um, most Unix and Linux desktop operating systems provide a GUI application for logs, and that's true. Class of service utilizes 8 levels of priority and modifies the PCP field in an 802.1q tag. That is true. And how does the line conditioning UPS protect network equipment? And it filters the line noise from incoming power. And then packets that are smaller than the minimum packet size are known by the term runts. Which of the following statements describes a RAID 0? In RAID 0, data is striped across multiple disks to improve performance. And then SNMP version 3 protocol introduced authentication, validation, encryption for messages exchanged between devices and the network management console, which is true. And then what happens when an NMS uses the SNMP walk command? The NMS uses GET requests to move through the sequential rows in the MIB database. Let's see here. And what makes up the first 6 bits of the 8-bit diffserv field, and it is the differentiated service code point, the DSCP. And if you wish to maintain a 4 nines availability rating, what is the maximum amount of downtime you can have per day? And that is 8 seconds for 4 nines. At what point is a packet considered to be a giant? And it becomes a giant when it exceeds the medium's maximum packet size. And what does the Common Address Redundancy Protocol do? It allows the pool of computers or interfaces to share the same IP address. And each managed object on a managed device using SNMP is assigned which of the following. It's an object identifier, or OID. Um, what term is used to describe the average amount of time that will pass for a device before a failure is expected to occur? And that's the mean time between failures. And a hot site consists of computers, devices, and connectivity necessary to rebuild a network, but without appropriate configurations, which is false. Once the device has failed, what metric measures the amount of time to repair? That's the mean time to repair. And then you can find out where various logs are kept on some Unix and Linux systems by viewing the etc syslog or etc rsyslog config files, and that is true. And the grouping of multiple servers so that they appear as a single device to the rest of the network is known as a cluster. And then Wireshark or any other monitoring software running on a single computer connected to a switch doesn't see all the network traffic, but only the traffic the switch sends it, which includes broadcast traffic and traffic specifically addressed to the computer, and that is true. So those are chapters 10 and 11. So just please make sure to take those over and over so that you see all the questions, because we didn't see all the questions, right? We've seen most of them. And then we'll have is exam 3 and the final, right? So we'll have exam 3 next week over these, right? So make sure you're studying all the quizzes for the exam 3, and then you're gonna have to study everything for the final too. So which I hate, that it's not that far after it, but at least yeah. So it's coming very quickly. That's crazy. But the best way to study for the exam and the finals is to take these quizzes multiple times so that you see all the questions, and then they won't be new to you. All right. Any other questions or anything? Did anybody think of something while we were going through the exam or the quizzes? You're good. All right. All right. Well, that's all I have for today. I'll thank you. I appreciate all the great questions everyone had and all the interactions. So I do appreciate that. I'm going to stop the recording.